In this video, we are going to continue our journey through the monster manual, where I've hand selected a few monsters for you to use in your very next Dungeons & Dragons campaign. This week, we're looking at monstrosities. The very first creature on our list of monstrosities today is, in my opinion, one of the most dangerous creatures in all of Dungeons & Dragons. It's known as the Doppelganger. Doppelgangers are devious, shape-shifting creatures that can take on the appearance of any humanoid, throwing off pursuits or luring victims into their doom through means of misdirection. Doppelgangers can read the surface level thoughts of any creature that is within 60 feet of them. This is a massive advantage for them, as it allows them to see through your player character's lies and deceits. It also allows them insight into conversation, allowing them advantage when trying to persuade others or deceive them. A doppelganger will keep their captive alive until they have mastered all of their mannerisms and extracted from them all their childhood memories, their secrets that nobody else should ever know, so that way they can continue the ruse on for as long as needed. Have your players try to uncover one in the next town that they visit. Perhaps the lord of the town or the speaker of the town has been captured and a doppelganger has been put in their place for political means. Or perhaps maybe your players are being framed for murder because they have wronged a doppelganger not long ago in the past. The next creature we have is a Remoraz. Now this creature is a huge bug-like creature that primarily lives within the Arctic regions or colder areas of the world. These creatures usually hunt elk and polar bear, but are known to attack any creatures that really do dwell within their territory. They have a tremor sense, which means that even though they burrow under the ground, they can feel and sense anything that moves around them within 60 feet. Their internal body heat is so high that should a character or player or an enemy attack it and cut open part of its flesh, they're met with this blast of hot air that deals fire damage to them. Remoraz burrow underneath their prey and burst from underneath them, trying to grab them in their jaws and grapple them. Once they have actually grappled the players in their jaws, they will attempt to swallow them, and should your players fall victim to their swallow, they are stuck inside this bug's intestines. They are restrained, and every round they are suffering acid damage until either the player dies or until your player's friends can deal enough damage that way the Remoraz vomits them up. A young Remoraz is still a large size, however it prefers to gnaw away at its prey instead of eating it and swallowing it whole. These creatures are highly sought after by frost giants, as at a young age they actually can be tamed and trained to protect their icy fortresses. Perhaps your players in the future could capture a Remoraz and bring it to a frost giant's fortress to gain favor with them. However, remember DMs that a young Remoraz is always not too far from its mother. Moving on, our next creature is the Rust Monster. This monstrosity, though is extremely weak in the grand scheme of D&D monsters, it does have a unique ability that can really render your lower level parties almost helpless, as well as any other player who doesn't currently have any magical items or magical armor on them. The rust monsters hunt in large packs, and they can actually smell and sense metals within 30 feet of them, and should they come into contact with metals such as swords, shields, arrowheads, armors of sorts, they can actually deal a different type of damage where it rusts the actual weapon and armor itself, reducing its effectiveness by -1 until eventually it gets so low that the actual metal itself cracks and breaks under old rusted age. Dwarves despise rust monsters. They would much rather fight hordes of orcs than face these little monstrosities. They will happily hire any of your adventuring parties to go into their mines and clear them out of all the rust monsters, so that way their own weapons and shields and equipment doesn't get destroyed for their mining purposes. However, if you would like to move into your higher level parties, as long as they aren't carrying magical weapons just yet, you could have have rust monsters attack your party right before they go into the room where there is a much larger battle that is going to take place, effectively putting them at a bit of a disadvantage. The next creature is the Displacer Beast. They're quite classical creatures, however their lore is very interesting. They once roamed the twilight realms of the Feywild until they were captured and enslaved essentially by the Unseelie Court, where they were trained to be hunting creatures. Over time, they grew bored of their masters and escaped, and now roam through the Feywild, which became a big problem for the Seelie Court of the Feywild. If you'd like to know the difference, leave a comment down below. These creatures were then hunted by the Seelie Court and their ever-faithful Blink dog companions and pushed to the edges of the Feywild, where eventually they fled into the material plane, where we now have them roaming in deep dark forests in the Underdark, waiting for their next prey. These monstrosities love to hunt. These creatures have an innate chaotic evil to them, where they, even when not hungry, they will hunt down their prey and just toy with them and bat them around and chase them until they fall dead on the ground from exhaustion, and then leave them there should they not require the food. These creatures have 2 long tentacles for tails, which they can whip out and attack once each in battle with a 10-foot range, as well as being able to create this illusionary blur of themselves, making it incredibly difficult for your players to even hit these creatures. Test them out when you're in the next deep dark forest, or, if you would like to, have them be the pet of maybe the big baddie, just to spice things up a little bit. When I think of our very next creature, I think of greed is good, because any greedy character is definitely going to run in to one of these. Classically, they take the form of a chest filled to the brim with gold. How could anyone ever say no? However, these creatures can take the form of any non-living object. Now, in Mordekainen's Tome of Foes, we were given the giant mimic, and then in the monster manual we have our regular mimic. What I like to think about with these is so much not that only giant objects can be a giant mimic and only medium to small items can be a regular mimic. I like to think of these stats as 2 separate things that I can use. Is my giant mimic morphing into a small ball-like object or chest and then expanding into something larger during battle? And is my larger mimic taking the form of a huge table or door, and then when revealed, it shrinks down to its actual size? These monstrosities have an adhesive stick to them, so should your players be greedy and pick up the chest for that sweet gold, they may stick to the sides, and this could render almost any character useless. Think about it, all your spellcasters that need semantics for their spell casting are now unable to use their hands due to the fact that they are stuck to this chest. Then you have things such as your fighters, your paladins, your rogues, any other hand-to-hand combat monster is unable to grab their weapons. I do believe that perhaps the monks are the only ones that have a decent chance as a one-on-one with these creatures. Mimics are fantastic creatures to put inside of a false vault in case your players are searching and dungeoneering for treasure, as well as having them hidden around a town, scaring off the townsfolk as they slowly pick away one every single night, creating this mystery of what monster or what creature or what being is killing everyone in town. Chimeras are one of the most interesting monstrosities on the entire list for the way that they were birthed. When mortals tried to summon and successfully summoned Demogorgon, the prince of the demons, to the material plane, he looked around and saw these creatures and was bored of what the world had to offer, and so began forcing and fusing creatures together. And so that is how we have the dragon, lion, goat-headed creature known as a chimera today. Chimeras are conflicted creatures that only want to sow chaos and spread pain, for that is all they really do know. So dealing with these creatures can be quite tricky, as they themselves do not really know what they want. They are extremely hard to fight, as they can deal out multiple attacks with their bites, claws, horns. They can get 3 attacks in one go, as well as having a breath weapon from the dragon head that is atop them. They are formidable foes, and I would highly suggest you throw them at your players who are kind of getting sick of the everyday regular dragons. The final creature we have on our list tonight is another monstrosity, but something that is just much greater. These creatures are known as the Driders. They are half drow, half spider. The way to become a Drider is an unfortunate one, as a drow is seen to displease Loth, the queen of spiders, the goddess of the drow. This is a way for her to show her followers that should they fail her, they will too get this curse. Driders are seen as lesser than slaves in drow society and usually shunned. Drider do still have all their abilities as a drow, whether they were a spellcaster or a hand-to-hand combat fighter. They still have these great physical feats and magical abilities. On top of that, now though, they have this hefty, thick spider hide and legs that allow them to climb all around caverns. They are chaotic and have almost lost their minds, but hold true to this one sense that they must strive to please their queen one more time. DMs, perhaps you have a drow that is part of your campaign currently, and in the unfortunate event that they do die, maybe they could come back as a cursed drider, a drow who went completely against drow society and so are being punished, so the party need to see them in this state and deal with them, unfortunately. Or perhaps they are treasure divers who are looking for a great treasure that the Queen of Spiders Loth has locked away, and she has Drider there protecting it. If you enjoyed this video, click on one of these videos here to keep up and catch up. Subscribe if you would like to, and I'll see you next week for the Fiends video.